so this is Matt Gaetz. You asked for it. By popular request, I'm staying on late again. Damn it. I was going to get out early tonight, but I had to do it. Here we go. Matt Gaetz just trying to draw any attention away from the fact that he just hired a huge team of lawyers expecting a scorched earth lawsuit, like legal problem coming his way.
Gaetz is recognized.
February 26, 2020, House Armed Services Committee, General Mark Milley. We know we're not going to defeat the Taliban militarily, and they're not going to defeat the government of Afghanistan militarily. You really blew that call, didn't you, General?
Well, they didn't beat it militarily, dumb fuck. They didn't. The Afghan government stood down and the president fucked off. He wasn't murdered by the Taliban. He left.
I believe that that was a issue of strategic stalemate, and that if we had remained in Afghanistan with the advisory levels of effort, then the government of Afghanistan.
Well, that's an interesting answer to a question. It's just not one I asked. You spent more time with Bob Woodward on this book than you spent analyzing the very likely prospect that the Afghanistan government was going to fall immediately to the Taliban, didn't you?
Not even close.
Yeah, that's, I mean, he's using a, by the way, Bob Woodward and Robert Costa would like to thank you for selling more copies of their book.
Oh, really? Because you said right after Kabul fell that no one could have anticipated the immediate fall of the Ghani government. When did you become aware that Joe Biden tried to get Ghani to lie about the conditions in Afghanistan?
He didn't get him to lie. He was telling him, stand up and be a president or your government's going to fall. No one believes in you. But, I mean, you know more about lying than I do, so in deference.
Did that in July. Did you know that right away?
I'm not aware of what President Biden...
You're not aware of the phone call that Biden had with Ghani where he said, whether it is true or not, we want you to go out there and paint a rosy picture of what's going on in Afghanistan. You're the chief military advisor to the president. You said that the Taliban was not going to defeat the government of Afghanistan militarily.
They didn't. They didn't. They did not. They didn't even militarily beat the Afghan soldiers. The Afghan soldiers handed their guns over and went home. The Taliban didn't militarily beat the Afghan government. The Afghan government fucked off.
Which, by the way, they cut through them like a hot knife through butter. And then the president tries to get Ghani to lie.
Sorry, they cut through them like a hot knife through butter?
Stand militarily, which, by the way, they cut through them like a hot knife through butter. And then
well, that's because they weren't... butter doesn't fight back. There was no fight.
The president tries to get Ghani to lie. When did you become aware of that attempt?
Well, there's two things there, Congressman, if I may. One...
Yeah, if I may address you as Congressman, I know it won't be much longer, and we don't know what your inmate number will be, so I'll just call you Congressman.
What I said was the situation was stalemate, and if we kept advisors with there, the government of Afghanistan and the Army would have still been there. That's what I said. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But
it seems wrong now with the Taliban
we withdrew all the
question for Secretary Austin. Secretary Austin, are you?
Yeah, whatever you do, don't let him actually answer the question. And I was about to say it makes you look like an asshole, but you're doing such a good job on your own.
Capable of assessing whether another has the will to fight.
No, we're not, and that's the point that the chairman.
Yes, we don't have a heart X-ray that shows people's will to live. And do you have a ray or a special pair of goggles that soldiers can put on to see if the heartbeat of democracy beats within their bosom? Do you have one of those? Did we leave it behind? Does the Taliban now have our democracy beats within the bosom of these people X-ray goggles?
Clear.
That's just like an incredibly disappointing thing for the Secretary of Defense to simply say, I can't assess whether someone has the will to fight, but it is consistent with your record. I mean, during the Obama administration, I think they gave you about $48 million to go train up some folks in Syria to go take on the Assad government. And I think your testimony was that only 4 or 5 survived first contact with the enemy. So what confidence should this committee have in you, or should the country have in you, when you've now confessed to us? And whether it's the swing and a miss in Afghanistan that General Milley talked to the Senate about yesterday, total failure, or whether it was your failures.
I don't know what the swing and a miss he's referencing on, but I love sports analogies when people are living and dying. It's so useful.
Syria, you don't seem capable to look at a fighting force and determine whether or not they have the will.
Well,
Is that an embarrassment?
Well, the people in Syria, they were overwhelmed by Syrian and Russian forces. That's not about will, I guess. They retreated because they were losing. This is totally different.
Congressman, that the end result was the SDF that we stood up that was very, very instrumental in turning the tide of battle up in Syria.
Oh, yeah. Turned it so much. You've got Assad in power in Syria. You got the Taliban in power.
We weren't seeking regime change. Or was Trump seeking regime change and we just add this to his fails?
Afghanistan. I mean, where have you been?
The focus was ISIS, Congressman, and those forces had significant effect on the ISIS network.
It just seems like you're chronically bad at this, and you have admitted that, I guess, which is to your credit. But
yeah, that's what he said. You think at this point, does Matt Gaetz just repeat things that were said in bed to him into the congressional record?
You know, when people in the military, like Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller, stand up and demand accountability, when they say that you all screwed up, when they point out that General Milley's statement that that the government of Afghanistan is not going to get defeated by the Taliban,
which they weren't. They were not. I don't know how many times we have to tread this fucking water. Milley, would anybody on that panel go, well, technically the Taliban did not beat the Afghan government. They left. They were failing. 2 million people in the country voted in the last election. 2.
He ends up in the brig, and you all end up...
Yeah, because we have a chain of command. We got protocol. We have, unbecoming of an officer kind of behavior. We want to make sure that people aren't just like live streaming their gripes with their superior officers. If we want to have, I don't know, a functioning military.
In front of us, and your former employer Raytheon ends up with a lot of money, and we have...
Well, they obviously have less money because we're out of Afghanistan. See, the Raytheon thing, that Raytheon jab would work if we were still in Afghanistan and still pouring good money after bad there. I've heard this from, like, left-wing talkers, from, allegedly left-wing, like Russell Brand, but also, like, the Young Turks and stuff. It's like, they seem to be throwing around this military-industrial complex thing without giving Biden credit for ending it. Like, there's not an ancillary force, there's not secondary little things. Done. Fucking done. If you're going to talk about anybody pulling the pacifier out of the mouth of the military-industrial complex, the gold medal goes to Joe Biden. Period. End of story. Fuck you.
Cash and blood and credibility into a Ghani government that was a mirage. It fell...
Yeah, Trump did that for 4 years, and you didn't give a shit. He was pouring that money into the Ghani government. He even said at his rally a couple times that he always knew it was a paper tiger. It would fall apart as soon as he left. It would fall, it was shitty. Yeah.
And while the guy sitting next to you was off, talking to Phil Rucker and was off doing his thing with Bob Woodward, we were buying into the big lie.
The last 4 years, we've been the big lie. Right. Yeah, I'm sorry the election came along and Trump's lie about actually winning became the big lie, and we had to use that phrase because now, it used to be your whole bullshit story about Nestor.
lie that this was ever going to be successful and that we could ever rely on the Afghanistan government.
So what's your argument? That we should still be there, fucko?
For anything at all. You know,
For anything at all. For anything at all. And by the way, whether he knows it or not, Matt Gaetz is arguing for Biden's response, Biden's removal of troops completely.
Kind of gave up the game earlier when you said you wanted to address elements of your personal conduct that were in question. We're not questioning your personal conduct. We're questioning.
Well, you don't read the briefs, so you wouldn't know. You haven't even read Peril. You've just used it as a prop. I read it. It's good.
In your official capacity, going and undermining the chain of command, which is obviously what you did. You've created this.
No, the guy who posted the videos now in the brig, he undermined the chain of command. Do you know how chains work? They have links. They go in a direction. There's usually some sort of primary end and response end. They're not just connecting chains, I suppose.
Did not undermine the chain of command in any manner, shape, or form.
You absolutely did. And it
not.
Well,
how? How the fuck did he undermine the chain of command? He's the top military advisor to the president.
You know what? You said yesterday.
You know what?
That you weren't going to resign when senators asked you this question. And I believe that you guys probably won't resign. You seem to be very happy failing up over there.
Dude, you do realize you'll be resigning soon. I mean, this asshole was just looking for a job at Newsmax because he knows his days are numbered in Congress. Dude is going to be on trial for sex trafficking a minor and giving her drugs. Drugging and having sex with a minor. Now, I know what you're thinking. Of course she was on drugs. Anyone would have to be on drugs to have sex with Matt Gaetz. That's not the point. It's illegal and morally wrong.
But if we didn't have a president that was so addled, you all would be fired. Because that is...
Sorry. Excuse me. You just made the argument that the Ghani government's been bullshit for years and that the president who was in there for the last 4 fucking years, who did nothing about this, who ran on, "You fired," and it isn't the addled one. Sorry, are we going for addled at this point?
And boy, that was like a lightning rod went off. First new branch of the U.S. Armed Forces in 75 years, Space Force. Not since the illegal. Buramizia. To me, Corona means Italy. Winston Churchill stood on the rooftops in London, very calm, making speeches. Winston Churchill.
I don't know. For those of you that may be confused by that last quote, Winston Churchill was at no time in Mary Poppins. Yes, and a lightning rod went off. It's just like that.
And boy, that was like a lightning rod went off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know. What was that about? Sorry, you were saying something about addled?
You deserve. You have let down the people who wear the uniform in my district and all around this country, and you're far more interested in what you're...
Yeah, hold the book up again. That really worked. I thought it was working. I think we all support it. That was good, right? Like everybody on the team, Matt, we love that. That was great. When you held up the book, I thought, I mean, the third time we were like, okay. But the first time it was like a bayow. But you did hold it up right side up, which is better than Trump did with the Bible in front of the burned out church. I will give you credit for that. But then, of course, when you held it up, it looked like you were selling it. And every time you held it up, it sold more copies. I don't know what you were going for, but great job, boss. Great job.
Uniform in my district and all around this country, and you're far more interested in what your perception is and how people think about you in Insider Washington books than you care about winning,
Gentleman's
which this
time
group
has
is incapable
expired.
of doing.
Sorry. Then you care more about winning than what?
or Washington books than you care about winning,
Gentleman's
which this
time
group
has
is incapable of
expired.
doing.
Oh, which this group seems incapable of doing. So the problem with Afghanistan isn't that we left, it's just we didn't win. Now, I would argue that the only win is having the maturity and strategic realization that staying is fucked up and winning is getting out, leaving, letting that country. There's a lot of countries that have terrorists in them, that are threats to the world, that we are not currently having multiple military bases in, putting our troops in harm's way, on the rando, just having them park there as targets. Right? But to Matt Gaetz, the only version of winning is we stay forever until the Taliban meets Trump's standards for leaving, his conditions on the ground, which was no Al-Qaeda can ever be given safe haven in the country. The Taliban said they agreed to that, but how do you prove it? You're going to take their word and leave? Wasn't that what we were doing? Wasn't that what the May 1st date was? We were taking their word for it. Okay, yeah, totally. No more Taliban, and no more Al-Qaeda. You got it. So if we are taking their word for it, and then they do it again, what are we going to do? Reinvade? Strafe bomb the place? Start another Afghan war? Jumpstart another 20-year war? Or are we just going to stay forever because you can't prove a negative? They could never prove a negative, that there are none. So we assume that there are some, and we will always assume there are some, and so we're staying forever. This, and by the way, this was sweet. This goofy fucker. The fact that he's got the nerve still to bring up that other people should resign. And by the way, that's how they do. They make it a wash. This is a rubber ball, your glue kind of tactic, and it works in broad strokes a lot of times. It doesn't work legally, and it certainly doesn't work when where the rubber hits the road as far as personality and elections and shit like that. But in general, it can kind of bat stuff back down. It's a good defense for a short time. You're the most morally reprehensible. No, you're the most morally reprehensible. You're morally reprehensible. Like, that's how they do it. You're a violent felon with a record. You're a violent felon with a record. No, I'm not. Yeah, you are. That's basically what you are. Hal started a movement. We should all be emailing his district and the GOP demanding to be censured from committees, at least while under investigation. This is insane. I agree. It's the question is, does he deserve to be on committee asking these questions? No, I would say no. Does it hurt him more than it helps? Yeah. This goes into that zone of like Trump attacking rhinos and Fox. Knock yourself the fuck out. But I do think you're absolutely right. Anthony says it, and I think you're absolutely right. Matt Gaetz, after all the Mike Lindell stuff, sorry, Mike, Matt Gaetz gets today's 5 eggs. That's right.
5 eggs.
That's right. You're going to have to
Eat 2 eggs a day. 5 eggs in a month. 5 eggs.
That's right. Matt Gaetz gets 5 eggs from everybody at his house.
5 eggs.
No, we don't throw
5 eggs in a month.
That's right. He just gets the 5 eggs. The award given for the most rotten bullshit presented in public. Because these eggs we're talking about are rotten.
5 eggs.
So, congratulations to Matt Gaetz for the last award you will receive as a free man.
5 eggs.
Which is, we all know how
5 eggs.
That's right. How disgusting you are.
Eat 2 eggs a day.
Yes, that's good advice. But whenever you have rotten eggs, Matt Gaetz gets
5 eggs in a month.
That's right. He gets 5 eggs for this month. He's the winner of the 5 eggs award. We do now have a 5 eggs hat and t-shirt. The hat on the Twitch channel, if you go to my store there, is pretty sweet. A couple people have it. You get some funny looks. It's pretty awesome. It's good stuff.